I'm still the sports professor, Rick Horrow, in the boardroom, Atlanta Braves, SunTrust Park, the newest public-private partnership in North America. The biggest, you could argue, the best because of the economic impact of it. Major League Baseball, an amazing renaissance internationally, coming off World Baseball Classic. Franchise values continue to increase. The World Series won by an iconic team, first time after 108 years. Guys like this are going to try to change that, but the bottom line of all of that over time is that Major League Baseball has become spectacularly successful in all aspects, including solving most of the stadium-related issues around the country. Tampa's out there, but everybody else pretty well solved, and everybody gets better after every other one. President of Business Operations, president of the team, president of the entire organization, Derek Scheller. And that, by the way, that wasn't a question of surprise. It was just a statement of exactly what the title was.
I wanted you to keep going.
I'm going to keep going as long as I continue not to make mistakes, and that's very important. Derek, thank you for having us in your home.
Absolutely.
It's a great place. And just to set the scene, because we're going to play this a lot over the summer, we're taping this. This is week 2 of
correct.
So how many you've had? 5 home games under your belt?
11
home games under your belt. Feels like 5.
Correct.
Right, exactly. And this facility is really taken the city by storm. But let me ask you, just at the threshold, better than expectations after 10, 12 opening games. You figured how worst nightmares, and how's it been over the last few days?
It's been fantastic. I mean, if you think about all we've achieved in the past 3 years as a big organization, there's not only this ballpark, which is a massive project unto itself, but we'll get into it. It's the Battery Atlanta, which is a real estate development. But it was the first big hurdle was getting this place open and operational. I think we cleared that hurdle with a great deal of fanfare and a lot of positive energy, and really accomplished a lot going into this from a business standpoint.
Well, let's talk about the kind of public-private partnership scene set first. Unique community in the sense that this is could argue it's the 3rd new ballpark in 50 years in this community, and for baseball, and they all had different reasons. The Olympics was one of the early ones, and the relocation of the Braves from Milwaukee was the first. This one basically had to stand on its own as far as what a public-private partnership meant.
Yeah.
Plus there was a notion that you all felt it was economically antiquated, but there aren't a whole lot of when you look at it, Turner Field was, why are we building a new one? So there was a lot of that issue. So go ahead and tell us how you did it.
Well, just to give everybody a little bit of background, we're coming from what is really downtown Atlanta location, although a little bit disconnected from that. Played at Turner Field for the past 20 years, so this is our first year in this new location here, which is about roughly 12 miles of distance from Turner Field. It's on the northwest corner of Atlanta. It's part of Metro Atlanta. We're an Atlanta address still, but it is about 12 miles away from what was Turner Field. And so there's a lot of different things that go into why we ultimately chose this particular location. Probably the biggest of which, though, is that we are doing a public-private partnership with the jurisdiction of Atlanta where we now reside, which is Cobb County. Previously, we were inside of Fulton County and specifically part of City of Atlanta. And so our deal with our old ballpark was part of City of Atlanta as well as Fulton County. There was a one-third situation as part of that. And then this new one is us with just the county. It's roughly a 50-50 partnership, just being very general about it. And it is true public-private partnership. Now that public-private partnership is specific to this ballpark. There's a complete 100% private deal that is the Battery Atlanta, that is our mixed-use development, which is a whole nother $550 million of mixed-use development.
So the first thing that's really interesting from my perspective as a veteran of facility development processes for hundreds of years, they're always controversial.
Yes.
Everybody's always an expert. Blue seats, red seats, this location, that
usually
location.
A professor.
Yeah, usually, right. Usually, and the professors opt for the last paragraph in the Wall Street Journal that talks about no economic impact whatsoever, and why do you do it? But yet, what was amazing about your facility, from my perspective, is you wake up one morning, the deal is done, and it's over. And basically, how did you keep the deal so quiet and politicians and everybody else, the financial people, the underwriters, so focused for an intense period of time without a lot of people knowing about it?
I think the key was that everybody was aligned. Those being the partners in this were aligned in trying to get this deal done. And you needed a level of privacy in order to complete those negotiations. They needed to be done in such a way where everybody could focus on their respective responsibility in the negotiation. And I think everybody kind of saw what was necessary in order to get the deal done. So we all had what I'll call equal motivation. And we also realized that the very hint, even a hint, that this may be something of a possibility, if that broke before we announced our deal, there was no deal for anybody. This deal would not have happened without that level of privacy.
Well, and I will say that you're almost too humble on that, because most public-private partnerships go in thinking that, but very few, only one that I've seen actually accomplished it, which is an incredible success.
Well, that was our first, but certainly not the last evidence that we have the right partner, and the right partner being Cobb County. I mean, they've exhibited that from every step of the way. Certainly the deal we have we believe is a very fair deal for both sides. That's one of the keys to success, as I believe long term, is that you walk away from that negotiating table and you understand that everybody's getting what they need, what they want out of this. It may not always seem like that in the press, as the press reports that, but I think if you were to ask the key leadership of Cobb County, they feel, certainly early on, but they feel very, very confident that this is the right deal for their county.
The other piece of this, too, Yankee Stadium took about 51 months design and completion, Target Field 48, and on and on. You guys, 8 months of design and 29 months of construction and 37 months of total. Again, almost unheard of. How do you do that?
Again, a lot of focus. So one of the things that we knew we had to do was we had a deadline, and we had to complete for that deadline, that being the opening game of this 2017 regular baseball season schedule. So everybody was motivated to get that done. We obviously, one of the first decisions was who was going to design this ballpark. We picked Populous. We got them in a room not only with a lot of people who could make decisions quickly, but also with others that were involved in the other parts of our project. There's a whole nother side of architects, engineers, collaborators, designers that helped us with the mixed-use development. That was critical because the marriage of the ballpark with the mixed-use development was something that had never really been done before, so we focused a lot of attention on how the ballpark met the mixed-use development. So even though Populous was tasked with just designing the ballpark itself, we needed to make sure that they were integrated into that mixed-use development. So I guess I'm saying that it's even that much more complicated when you factor that in. But I think one of the keys to success for us was that we had a relatively nimble and aggressive decision process. What I mean by that is that there was a small group of people who were responsible for the decision making of everything involved in this project. It did not have to go to an extreme layering process, which resulted in being very quick with our decisions and very thoughtful in that we knew what we wanted from the very beginning when this project was launched.
And again, from a business show perspective, one of the takeaways about this place is not just the physical structure, we'll get that in a minute, but a process of a streamlined public-private partnership, which is heretofore unprecedented.
That's right. One of the things that also speaks to how the deal makes good sense for Cobb County, but also for that process and specifically to the timeline, is that we're responsible for all the cost overruns. And so we wanted to make sure that there weren't any, of course, but what it did by structuring a deal like that with the public entity is it sort of removes some of the issues that you sometimes have with these public entities where they may be involved in too much of the process because they have some sort of stake in the overruns. In this particular case, since we're responsible, we said, here's the amount that you're going to spend in this, Cobb County. We're responsible for the rest. Let's just all get out of the way of one another and let's get this design done.
And it's a lot more publicly acceptable, I assume, if you all really look like and you are taking the risk.
We are, for sure. And not only the risk with respect to the ballpark, but as you'll continue to hear me say, the risk with respect to the real estate development. That's a $550 million project. You could argue that's 100% risk, 100% on us.
And we'll talk about that in a second. We're going to also do something that we've never done before, which is the executive of the team, who has pedigree bar none, is going to lead our executive producer, Kelly Barnes, who, by the way, is tremendous at this, in a virtual tour of the stadium. So Kelly's going to pan and take the 2 minutes or 3 minutes kind of describing the overall concept of the ballpark, then we'll get specific.
Sure. So the ballpark was designed as a 41,000 seat ballpark. That was one of the first key prerequisites. To give some perspective, Turner Field was about 50,000 seats, so we're roughly 10,000 seats fewer than we were at Turner Field. It is also a cantilevered design with open concourses. Those were also first key prerequisites, meaning we wanted to make sure that this was designed with the very best sight lines in mind. We tried to say to populace, we wanted all the seats closer to the field as possible, and that means that the design reflects that. It takes some cues from some of the past populous ballparks, places like PNC Park in Pittsburgh, or St. Louis, Busch Stadium, or even AT&T Park in San Francisco. A few of those others where, I think the argument or the positive feedback on those was, very good sight lines, very good for baseball watching. And then the other things that we really tried to do was make sure that it fit for our particular environment. So, we have a canopy, for example, a sun canopy that is about 3 times the size of the canopy at Turner Field. That's important here in the South with a lot of sun and potential inclement weather. It means that with the cantilever design, we have over 60% of our seats that have some level of coverage. So in day games, hot days with the sun out, we have a lot of coverage, and then also for the occasional rain, there's a lot of coverage. We also did something where we created what we called with Populous these little neighborhoods throughout the ballpark. You won't be able to see it on this particular type of camera, but we took lots of different areas of the ballpark and kind of designed them with a flexible mindset, something in it for everybody. Some examples of that. So when we did our research on all of our demographics of people who've attended the Braves games, about 55% of them are families coming with a child with them. So very important for us to have a very family-friendly ballpark, but then something for the kids to do. So we have, a place where there's a kids' play area, and those are just small little examples of, a variety of different little neighborhoods in it for everybody.
Thank you to Derek Schiller for that narration, and more important, thank you to Kelly Barnes for keeping her. Are your arms okay? Everything all right? You sure? Yeah? Thumbs up, ladies and gentlemen. We can last another day. The battery is fine. It's just a question of whether Kelly calls it quits and walks out of the room.
That's right.
Talk about a couple of things as far as corporate Atlanta, big-time corporate community, and one of the things I notice about your corporate flexibility is you've got the Delta Sky C360 Club, the SunTrust Club, you've got Infinity Club, you've got Champion Suites, you've got a whole bunch of opportunities for corporations to activate in a variety of different ways.
So just taking the revenue from our corporate partnerships they're 50% higher here than they were at Turner Field. Part of that's because I'd like to think that we designed in an intelligent way with a company's mindset of what we could deliver from an activation space, an entitlement space. You mentioned a few of those. But we did things where we're giving partners things that they more want when they're doing these types of deals with a sports team. So we've had a lot of success in that. Certainly the foundation of all that was our naming rights partner, SunTrust. Uniquely, we actually announced our naming rights partner at the same time that we did the groundbreaking for the ballpark. That really is, to my mind, to my knowledge, has never been done before.
Well, yes, it has. Cisco Field in Oakland and Farmers Field in LA. How about those examples? Are those pretty good?
Pretty good. We'll see if all those happen the way they're supposed to happen, though.
Ground was broken on those decades ago, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know.
That's true. But it does, I think in the SunTrust case, it was something that got them a lot of exposure right off the bat, but also we could work with them as the naming rights partner with, 2.5, 3 years to go. With a lot of thoughts into what they wanted out of this ballpark, what types of things that they wanted to get out of the naming rights.
Group spaces, baseball, sports in general, baseball particularly. It's tribal, it's social. a lot of meeting opportunities. You take a look at your inventory. You got Xfinity Patio, corporations opportunity to activate, but Hank Aaron Terrace, the Home Depot Clubhouse. I can't mention all of them because you just Coors Light below the chop. All of those are opportunities where you have people and their ability to congregate. Social media as well.
So we have about 500,000. Our goal will be about 500,000 people will attend the Braves game here at SunTrust Park as a group ticket offering. And so when we were doing some of the work with Populous in the design, knowing that baseball is, as you say, a very social sport, something where people like to come in groups to go to games, we asked them to do as many of those group spaces and keep them as flexible as possible. Something for everybody. So if you're a young adult and you want, a really unique perspective of the game, we have what you referenced, the below the chop. Below the chop is one level below our chop house, which is our iconic feature out in right field, and it's literally on the same level as the field. It has about 100 people in it. We build it in with food and beverage into that, and it creates a unique destination for groups, and we have a number of those throughout the ballpark.
Then also, one other feature of this ballpark, which I find pretty unique, you're long on legacy. And it's interesting because your team in Atlanta, anyway, is 50, how many years old? 50?
So we've been in Atlanta since 1966.
Yeah, okay, so 51.
Correct.
But yet, your legacy is celebrating the history of the Braves, in my mind, a lot more than a lot of teams celebrate longer histories in their communities. And so I know it's very important to you guys. Yeah,
absolutely. In fact, that was another key prerequisite with Populous. They did a really good job of helping us to understand how to demonstrate and memorialize our history dating back to when we were originally in Boston. So this team was actually started in 1871, and as a result of that is the longest continuously operated franchise in major sports.
The Bees? The Braves? The Bees.
It actually started well before even the Braves, so it was a Boston team that went through a number of iterations of different names, ultimately landed on the Braves, stayed in Boston for a number of years, went to Milwaukee, as most people know, and then ultimately came to Atlanta in 1966. We had a museum at Turner Field, but you really had to go out of your way to sort of find that. You had to make it your own destination. So one of the things that we did here is we celebrated that legacy dating back to 1871 with all the different, players and various things, accolades, mementos, etc. And we spread those throughout the entire ballpark. So as you walk around the ballpark, whether you're in a club space or an open space, you're going to find memorabilia that demonstrates our history and really showcases that brand, that history, that legacy of the Braves brand dating back all the way to 1871.
You also bring back a lot of your icons in a lot of different circumstances. So Javi Lopez was leading the chop yesterday, which I found very interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
The ladies like to have Javi Lopez visit. I've seen for some reason.
Interesting. That's another entirely different conversation, and I frankly don't want to get into that right now.
I was going to ask Kelly. I don't know.
Kelly, how you doing? You holding up? You okay? Everything all right? Good. Good. Kelly's still holding up, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk baseball for a second. Generally, do you feel as positively as Rob Manfred does about the future of the game?
100%. I feel even stronger about it. I think one of the things that baseball has demonstrated over many, many years, but certainly in the most recent decade, and even if you want to narrow it down to like the last 5-6 years here, is that it is, we were just talking about, it is a very social sport. It is the social fabric of America in particular. And it's a sport, it's interesting because it's a sport that doesn't have a clock. So and
by the way, do you resist all the stuff around the game where you're trying to put clocks that nobody follows anyway? How do you feel about it?
You know what? I think there's something to be said for trying to keep the game to a certain time frame that is manageable, right? And so if we can do that, but still have its own life to it, and have each game have its own uniqueness to it, I think that would be ideal. But by not having a clock and by it being such a social sport, it's something that whether you're coming as a family or friends or even a business outing, you can get out of it what you want. And certainly playing outdoors during the summer months primarily, it is a sport that I think fits very nicely in Americana, and I believe the future is very bright for it.
International as well, World Baseball Classic?
I'm a strong believer in the international aspects of the game. That's demonstrated around each and every clubhouse with a number of players that come from different countries. In fact, yesterday we announced, as an example, an initiative that reaches out to our Hispanic marketplace that's under the the nomenclature Los Bravos, where we'll ultimately wear a different jersey on a specific game, but it gives us a chance to celebrate those players with Hispanic descent and go into the Hispanic marketplace here in Atlanta and connect more firmly with them and do a bunch of different outreach programs. That's just a small example.
I may have the stat wrong, but I think I got it right. It was 26 playoff teams in the last 5 years, which is the most in baseball history. NFL likes to think itself as the league of parity. Is this good parity or is this bad mediocrity?
Of course, I'm going to argue for good parity.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to argue for Braves getting into the playoffs as much as possible. Obviously, we had the run of 14 straight in the 90s and early 2000s, and I think we're going to return to that glory here soon. You know, we've struggled over the past couple of years, but I think we're going to end up being, with the growth and dominance that we've started to see of our minor league system, we're going to start to see some of those players matriculate into the majors, and we're going to start to see our Braves return to the playoffs. And hopefully we'll have a dominance in there, and you can say that, you know, we didn't have parity because the Braves continue to win it over and over again. That's my hope.
Can't wait to have that conversation. The other part of this really quickly is the economics relative to the Braves today. Forbes, and by the way, the only reason people use these numbers is if Forbes says they're the high numbers and they want to use it. But who knows what they are? But on a relative basis, they ranked you 13 the last time they looked, and it was about $1.1 billion. But obviously, the stadium's going to have a dynamic impact on all of that.
Yep.
How do you feel about the notion of revenue sharing and the haves and the have-nots now that you're inching up the scale?
I think it's an important part of the game. I think obviously the economics of this sport are such where you need to have some governors on it in order to make sure that no matter the marketplace that you play in, that there are some opportunities for success on and off the field. We find ourselves here in Atlanta kind of in the middle of the 30 teams as far as market size and market positioning. So sometimes, depending upon what day it is and what's the situation, we may argue for one side or the other of that. Right. But overall, I think the system works out very well. Obviously, we have a belief that the real estate development side of our business interests create a revenue line item for us that are going to help us long term, no matter what happens with respect to revenue sharing, pluses or minuses for us. It gives us an enhancement that we can hopefully rely upon, just like we rely upon things like the broadcast revenue line items and ticket sales and others. We now are going to add that real estate line item.
Finally, so Derek Schiller, he's learned from the best. He learned from George Steinbrenner, right?
True, that's true.
That was the best. Learned from the Thrashers. I don't know if that was the best or not.
Ted Turner was part of that.
Ted Turner part of that. So what's it like at Thanksgiving dinner, and you're 4 years old, and you're sitting around, and Harvey Schiller is your dad, but Olympic Committee and Yankees and just icon. So what is he just dad to you, or is it?
He is, although and I in fact he was just here in Atlanta. We were just talking about this. My dad was an educator. Before he became, head of the Olympic Games or the Olympic Committee, commissioner of the SEC, part of Yankee Nets, etc. He taught chemistry, and so I think at the heart of it, he is an educator. And so one of the things that happens around our dinner tables, whether it be Thanksgiving or otherwise, is he's always educating us. He's usually telling us how we're wrong. Me and my sister. It's what dads do, yes, right. And I do the same for my kids now. But more than anything, he's trying to impart knowledge on us. One of the best things that I've learned from him is that you can never stop learning. Yeah. And the moment you stop learning is the moment you're going to have failure. So for us, using our project, in which we were just talking about, we're learning every day. I'm learning a lot about how to manage a real estate project, and actually the lessons of all of that I actually believe started with my dad. So I think in large part he's responsible for all this.
So you took him on a tour of the park, and I know you took him at dinner afterward, and you looking at the park. Were you proud?
I was, very much so. He got to enjoy a Billy Joel concert. The very first concert played here. We had a sold out
was he singing?
ballpark.
Did he sing? He doesn't sing.
You know what? He didn't sing. He actually took some Facebook and some other things. So perhaps you go visit his Facebook page, you'll see that. But I think he really did appreciate all this. We had dinner in the Battery beforehand. So he got to see how the restaurants and bars and all that kind of stuff worked. But he tells me he's a proud papa, and I believe him. So he's also a proud grandfather now too.
Well, Harvey, I got two things to tell you. Number one is you did real good. The second thing is, he's done it all on his own. So you did real good, but not as good as you say you did. Okay,
Exactly.
That's part of the deal.
Exactly.
Derek, we're going to talk about economic development and the surrounding real estate with Beth Marshall too. But you're proud. So one parting issue on that. I'm sure you're proud of the legacy that you're leaving regarding contiguous development, both residential, commercial, retail, et cetera.
That's right. We've started to get a lot of teams that are coming here that have other ideas of doing somewhat similar things, whether it be the Texas Rangers or what's going on in San Francisco with the Giants, or I can name a number. In fact, later on today is Detroit has a contingency here. There's a lot of different groups that are visiting here, just like we visit a lot of different baseball stadiums and NFL stadiums and others. That's kind of one of the great things about the sports industry. It's a little bit fraternal like that, where we're not necessarily competing with any of those teams that I just mentioned or anybody else, and so we try to show best in class. Obviously, we're very proud of this. We believe this is the next model for the sports business. We believe having, in effect, an arena, stadium, ballpark anchoring a private mixed-use development, a real estate project, is a very good thing. These concepts of creating destinations are things that I think in particular the retail community is really looking at. If you're studying retail right now, there's a huge decline in the amount of retail spaces and shops that are going on, but when they talk about the places that are successful, they're destination offerings. They're places that people want to go for lots of different reasons. So in a lot of ways, these sports venues have become the anchor tenant, the Macy's, the Nordstroms, if you will, of the new version of the mall.
Yeah. Well, Beth Marshall, we would have. I mean, you're done. There's nothing for you to add. Sorry. Great perspective, Derek. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to visit us.
That.
Yeah, absolutely,
awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay. Next, I know Derek's got somewhere to go. Yep. Beth Marshall is the Senior VP of All Things Good. What's the title?
Just got promoted.
Okay, good. Good. Well, thank you, Derek. Speak in a little while. That's awesome. So you're going to take that, and we're going to sit for a minute just because I want to make sure that Kelly Barnes is rested. Are you okay? Everything okay? You sure? She's still good. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about retail, and I think what we probably ought to do is walk and see it. Okay. So let's go.
All right.
Okay. And
we're gonna have to be close together.
Close together. And by the way, I know everybody who's seen my Facebook Lives every couple of weeks, there are people who will walk seamlessly backwards, escalators, elevators. Let's see how Grand Poobah Kelly Barnes does on this. Okay. Yeah. We'll just see. Which way are we going?
We should probably follow her.
All right.
Backwards.
All right. So far, we've got 3 HR lawsuits that just happened. Okay. All right. So we are. By the way, we are in the Braves office, and for those of us who might have lawyers, we are not doing this during a live game. Okay.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yes.
We are doing it early.
Yeah.
And we can pan out, take a look at the. These are the Atlanta Braves executive offices.
Yep.
Okay. Out to the other side. So we've got overlooking the field over here.
So we were just on the field. We're going through some of the Braves offices, marketing, corporate partnerships, and we're going to work our way across to the Battery Atlanta, which is the mixed-use development.
Good. So the advantage of where we just had the interview is that when Derek wants to oversee his payroll, he can actually take a look at the team.
Exactly right.
Right.
Exactly right.
Exactly.
Kelly, you're doing a good job walking.
Kelly, you doing okay? Good.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Excuse me. You're supposed to be silent during all this, okay? Thanks. Awesome. So we're going to overlook the Battery.
Yep.
Okay. So why don't we do this? Pan.
Scoot in there.
Yeah, scoot in here, and that way you can pan, Kelly, and you can kind of give us an idea as we start. So yeah, let's do this. So this is our perspective. Here's where we're oriented. And Kelly will start with the Comcast and the kind of Georgia Power area. And Beth, why don't you talk a little bit about the commercial aspect of this?
Yep. So Comcast, 1,000 employees. They'll be moving in later this month. They're kind of taking their different offices in this region and merging them all into one. And to the left of Comcast, you'll see the construction of the Omni Hotel, which is the first 4-star hotel in this area.
And that, how many floors will overlook the field?
It's probably about 7. And
they'll
only a certain number of rooms will do that.
But they'll price it that way.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting.
Yes, and there's a pool deck which is being built,
Okay.
so that part of the pool deck you can see into the ballpark, but you can't see the game itself. You can just see part of the ballpark, which is fun. That will open January, and then as you can see further down, there in this complex there's about 550 apartments. So you can see down the street, apartments on the top, there's retail on the bottom, and as Kelly pans down, you can see this is the place where fans gather. This is the plaza area, and this is where people gather before going into the game.
And let's talk about the residential for a minute.
Yep.
The fact sheet you gave me said the median household income is about $60,000 and the average age about 32 years, which is a sweet spot for any development that wants to move forward. So I assume this is the place to be and will continue to be the place to be after a year of baseball.
Yeah, and our partner in the apartments, they've never seen anything like it, because right now there's probably about 150 apartments that are online to move into, and 80 of them are already about 120. A majority of those were signed leases without going inside. They were still under construction when people signed the leases, and that is unheard of. And so it really is the true test of this, what we thought would be a really vibrant place to live, work, or play, is really coming to fruition. We do have, so people have started to move in. They'll be moving in throughout the summer as the 3 different buildings open.
The number I thought was interesting is that the Cumberland area is adding another $2 billion in real estate value by 2024, which is 1/3 of the time it took to capture the last $2 billion.
That's
big
exactly
number,
right.
big deal.
And I think that's part of the halo effect that this is having on the Cumberland CID, and even to the point where there are some apartment buildings that are they're calling themselves, one is called the Reserve at the Ballpark.
Wow.
So it's actually part of our development. It's a development off to the east, but they're taking advantage of the fact that we're moving here. And so that's a true testament to additional development.
Let's do something else. So, crack executive producer Kelly Barnes, you still with us? You doing all right? Good. Everything okay? Don't shake the camera. So the Waverly Renaissance Hotel, you can see that over there.
In the distance.
Not a shameless plug because we're staying there. It's just it took about 15 minutes to walk over I-285, 75, 285.
The pedestrian bridge.
And the incredible part about that is about $225 million in roadway improvements and $2.5 billion in infrastructure. So you really connect the Galleria Mall, which is over there again, to this side, which is going to help everybody.
So, the Cumberland was already starting to kind of become a walkable community. And now more so with the pedestrian bridge across 285, and then we have additional pedestrian bridges on the other side of the ballpark, which is connecting another subset of this area. So people who at lunchtime want to come over and have a different place to walk and go have lunch have found the restaurants are packed at lunchtime too, which is really terrific.
So net, you've been open, as we said, 11 games from this taping. The retail, commercial, residential, gathering stuff, are you does it exceed your expectations? Or are you kind of where you think it should be?
No, I think we are. It exceeded is the right word.
Yeah.
I think it's even beyond what we ever thought it could be, and I think to our fans, especially in the Billy Joel concert, everyone came so early, and not all of the places are open, right? So it was packed to the gills, which is a good thing and it's a bad thing. So know that things are going to be opening through the summer, more places to go, more choices, but the fact that it is working, there are places to come and relax and eat before you come into a show, before you come into a game, and then to hang out after an event or a game.
And take a look at, so Take a look at down here. You have different avenues or different entrances to walk in. You can walk in this elevated structure, go through security, get in here. You can go down in the pedestrian level as well. Talk about Roxy Coke and the 3,000 seat facility that's right next door relative to entertainment that you're going to have on a regular basis.
So you can't see it, Kelly, so don't try. But
don't strain your neck.
To the right of what Kelly's shooting is the Coca-Cola Roxy, which is a 4,000 person concert venue, and it's being programmed by Live Nation. It's kind of what they've booked: rock, alternative rock, hip hop, country. And we're trying to, every sort of musical act, they'll have comedians that perform there, and those will be programmed mostly on days where we do not have any games.
And the permits allow, it's a great public-private partnership because the county and the developers are hand in hand to try to maximize traffic, whether there's a game here or not. Right?
That's correct. And so we have a wonderful partnership with Uber. And so there's a particular drop-off and pick-up point for Uber, for easy for fans who want to come, have fun, and not worry about driving home. The other partnership that has worked really well with the whole transportation issue with coming into Atlanta has traffic. I don't know if you've heard.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
So, every parking lot, and we have parking lots now dispersed 360 degrees, where before we just had them in one particular area. Every parking lot has an address. So if you put that address into Waze, which is the other incredible app that we have a partnership with, you will be directed right to your, that is close, Kelly Barnes.
Wow.
Right.
Step back.
Right to your lot. So you won't be brought, your directions won't take you right to the ballpark. It'll take you right to your lot. And that has alleviated a lot of traffic in getting easy in and easy out.
So the interesting perspective is that you take away the normal uncertainty and stress that goes along with the ballpark opening with some newfangled stuff that makes people comfortable about coming to the game.
That's right, and people are used to now, you know, with everyone putting their airline ticket on your phone, right?
Yeah, right.
And you're now putting your ticket on your phone. Well, now you can buy your parking, put it in your phone, and then take it right to Waze. It's one app and gets you everything that you need for a game.
And you give people choices, but you do push people to Uber as far as transportation is concerned relative to the deals that you have with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We and we've probably been more successful than we anticipated in that area too. So that's an area that we continue to tweak. But it's been, if I say, uber successful.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And, you know, this interview was going to come to an end anyway, but now it's going to come to an abrupt end. Beth Marshall, thank you very much.
Thanks, Rick.
For the opportunity to talk about real estate and your opportunity to cut your pending vaudevillian career very short after that comment. That was really good. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me give you some perspective on what I perceive as an amazing process for a few reasons. First of all, as Derek mentioned, the idea of putting together a public-private partnership that nobody knows about until the deal is done and then finishing it in record time in a very complex city, county, multi-layer of government after two facilities had been done for baseball in the last 50 years, and a lot of people saying, why need a third, is something that is beyond comprehension. Second, it's the legacy of the Braves as it relates to the ballpark design, corporate flexibility, gathering places, the ability to honor past traditions and look to the future. So the design itself is special. As important, as Beth was telling you, the retail aspect, the commercial, the residential, this is really a gathering place in a part of town that is now a kickstart and a catalyst in the future. Bottom line is everybody questions public-private partnerships, clearly the world over, but this is the next one that sets an example to everybody in the U.S. and around the world of how to do something right. Now they just got to get it right on the field. We'll see how that works out over time. I'm the sports professor, Rick Horrow. Thank you for watching.